Problem is, putting the whole internet in means that it's got the whole internet in it.
Yeah, which is a horrendous place, as we know. Hello and welcome to Off Script. Today we're talking about GPT-3 and the future of AI. So, Rio, what is GPT-3?
GPT-3 is an AI model, and all it does is very simply predict the next word. So it doesn't know that it's writing a poem or a list or whatever you've asked it to do. You may have seen it on the internet floating about, but you go onto openai.com, you sign up and type a bit of text and it'll try and respond.
And is this a completely open API? You can just use it, anyone can freely use it? Is it like a beta list or...
You can sign up. It costs money because the model is massive and uses lots of GPU power to crunch all the stuff. So yeah, it's pay per use. So every request is measured in tokens. A token is generally, one token is one standard English word.
Right.
And then a misspelling or a complex word or a brand name would be multiple tokens.
Okay.
So yeah, it kind of works like that. You can poke it through curl or through whatever tooling that you want. But yeah, it's a very exciting bit of tech. It's probably the most exciting AI model that anyone's ever seen. Obviously a lot of people are getting excited by DALLE 2, which is by the same company.
Mm-hmm.
It's a foundation that was originally set up by Elon Musk and a few others. He put some cash in and then didn't, and then and Microsoft put a couple of $1 in.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's honestly amazing.
Well, there's not many things to thank Elon for at the moment, with everything that's going on with it.
He's just destroying Twitter at the minute.
As he's slowly just decapitating Twitter.
I give it till Christmas, till something really bad happens.
I don't even give it that long. But yeah, I think it's good to see how it's kind of grown into what it is now. It's a hugely exciting technology, and I guess the possibilities aren't endless, but they're pretty open, aren't they?
Yeah, so I think they've got all the greatest minds on it through a strong code of ethics, and it's set up as an open foundation where wasn't for profit initially.
Yeah. Although
they are sort of leaning towards more profit generating things now, but it's still got a bit of a foundation-y feel to it.
I guess the sustainability is quite important because of, to keep evolving this sort of technology. And we'll get on to kind of future versions of it later on in the podcast. But yeah, I think the sustainability of it is important, isn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, it needs to keep going, and they need to keep feeding more cash in to train the next versions of the model, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't make this general natural language processing model just for your own use, because the amount of training data you'd have to throw at it, you wouldn't get the value. But they can obviously have hundreds of thousands of clients using it, customers, to do some pretty interesting things. So I've seen it. You may have seen loads of adverts for like Jasper and like blog writing services and stuff. Questionable use, but but it does actually really help for things like idea generation. So if you want to come up with product names, slogans, I've used it for recipe ideas, seen people do that on the internet. But yeah, it's quite interesting, and all it does is it's taken in the entire internet basically, and it's just trying to guess what the next word is based on what it knows from what it's read before.
Simply consume the internet, isn't it?
Just insert an internet, and then which means you do get some questionable stuff out of it, but the way that you write the prompt really affects what you get out of it.
So I think that's something for those that have played with DALLE, definitely the power of the prompt really does dictate the results that you get from this sort of stuff. So good prompt writing, you start to learn how you need to write the prompts, right?
That's it, yeah. And people are writing books on good prompt writing, and I think it'll be a job title next year, like more and more places. It's putting a good prompt in. At the moment, if you sort of copy the way that a good sentence is written, or like if you use like legalese or whatever, it will copy and mimic that. So it'll go to that place. So if you ask it in a very casual way, you'll end up with sort of forum blog post style result. Whereas if you put in like the title of a white paper, it will try and come up with some plausible contents of that white paper in the way that they would normally write them, which is terrifying.
And I guess that's also why it's interesting for things like blog post writing, because you could very easily and quickly plagiarize as well as write things that are surrounding that content.
Yeah, you could give it, because it's read everything, it will know about stuff. Yeah.
Because it's read everything.
But you can't, copyright isn't the idea, it's just the order of the words. So it doesn't actually contain any copyrighted material. It just knows the links between the words. It doesn't reproduce copyright material, but it does appear to understand it. It doesn't actually understand it. That's the important distinction. Yes.
The idea generation is a really interesting one. So it's this, this generation's kind of logo generator. Remember we used to have those hipster logo generators, or still have them actually. So the future of that is really just getting something to write your names and your business idea for you. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about the idea generation stuff is that it'll churn out lots of things, but as a human reading through it, you'll go, that one's interesting. That's interesting. It doesn't know which ones are crap and which ones are good, but you do.
Yeah.
And you can quickly sort of sort through it and put some more ideas into it and use that to generate more of a list. So if you could start off on a list and then you do 5 dot space, leave it blank, and it'll complete it in the same style. But yeah, for things like that, it's really, really good.
Which is why, was it GPT-3 that was used in Copilot, GitHub Copilot?
GitHub Copilot, which I've been using today actually.
Yeah, any good?
Yeah, good. I've been writing some Java and some Swift to bridge some SDK stuff.
Nice.
And I don't want to look up the syntax for some of the API stuff, and I don't have to. You just write the comment and then it'll write it. It'll fill in the correct variable names and then you run it and it runs.
Which is amazing, because a lot of the time as well in some applications you have duplication, or you have a pattern of things that you need to kind of write out, and for the fact that it can just kind of interpret how it needs to do that, it's terrifying for our actual jobs, but also fantastic.
It's absolutely terrifying. And if you use it too much, will you ever be able to debug it? Probably not.
Because you'd have no memory of writing it, right?
No. It's bad. But some good uses that I've seen on Product Hunt. One is Summarise.tech, which we chatted about the other day. But you basically put a YouTube URL in, and it'll go through the transcript, and then it'll summarize the whole video with links to that point in the video. So if you've got a really long talk and you want to get this sort of salient points out of there and jump to the right bit, then you can use that, which is really, really cool.
That's really quite powerful, I think, particularly if you're kind of writing content surrounding a bunch of videos or things like that. It's really amazing, I think.
I think if Zoom integrated this, and you had an hour-long meeting, and then just at the end it went this, you would be like, fuck, did I really need that meeting?
Camera off.
Did I even need to attend? But that would be really good.
That's an idea and a half.
It is. I've been toying with the idea of making a little what are they called when you have a little toolbar thing at the top? It just records a conversation. OpenAI have already released a transcription thing which works with dialects and Scottish voices and stuff.
That's interesting, because Zoom has the captioning API where you can pipe the audio and video into a third-party service. So I feel like you need to make that.
First person to do that wins. You can have that idea for free, but just cut me in,
That's how it works. So what other uses are
there? Translation. So you can give it an English phrase, ask for it in Spanish, and it will know somehow that is correct. And it's very, very good at doing that. But I saw a blog post the other day, and someone's doing it with source code. So they've got all their test suite written in Cypress.
Right.
And they're porting it to Playwright. And they give it an example of Cypress, an example of Playwright. And then they give it an untrained Cypress, and it'll kick out actual playwright code that works and runs.
That's amazing.
Which is pretty incredible, because no one wants to port a test suite.
No.
People got better things to do.
We've all been there, though. We've all been there having to manually move stuff over or tweak things. Imagine the power of CLI tools where you could just have a conversion suite built in for, hey, you're going from Laravel to Rails.
Yeah.
Simply insert.
Or Rails to Laravel in my case.
I'm biased. But yeah, the power of that's pretty mad, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Someone made a Google Sheets plugin the other week. So you just do equals GPT-3 in brackets and then give it a prompt and a cell.
Right.
And then it'll make another cell. So one of the examples they had was a list of people's names, the gifts that they've got them for the wedding,
right?
And then it'd generate a thank you note in the new column. Yeah.
I thought your wedding ones were a bit.
I haven't sent mine out yet. I'm waiting on the photographer for about 1 million years.
Well, I'll be keeping an eye on the text and I'll be comparing it.
I think it's a bridge too far. Is that?
I quite like it though, if you've got, imagine though, for kind of business use cases, if you've got some sort of like launch event or things like that.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
This is the problem. It's salespeople are going to use this, aren't they?
Oh no. Yeah.
And marketers.
I was just moaning about
and recruiters.
I was just moaning about salespeople and recruiters today, actually.
Can you imagine it if that horrible recruiter that you don't like is also using AI?
Oh my god! I mean, they'd probably get a response from me, but probably not what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was shite that they're putting memes in emails, but now if they start writing them with AI, that's going to really do my head in.
Yeah, and if they get the AI to listen to this podcast and then pepper us with ads. No, that's another thing. AI targeted advertising, that's going to happen, isn't it?
There was a really good talk at FFConf that I went to recently, which you should listen to an episode that we recorded on this. But where capitalism came up. Hayden Pickering did a talk on capitalism, and he talks about the next horrendous area, which is just going to be the most unimaginably awful thing is ads. It already is, but ad tech's going to get even worse in this space.
But what if it knew everything, and well, they already do know everything, but then they tailored it just to you
and contextualize that data? Oh god, it'd be awful, wouldn't it?
Awful.
But it would work, and I would buy more things, which is the problem.
Yeah, I hate it. Conversational applications it works for. So you give it an example of a conversation, and then you can add something that someone said, and then it'll come up with a reply.
Yeah.
The classification use case is what we're using it for in an app that's launching soon. But basically, instead of getting the user to choose the category that conversation is in, like tech, news, food, all that kind of stuff, the user's never going to go and select the right one because they'll just get bored and pick the first thing. So we just send it the URL, the title, and then it will actually categorize it. We just give it a list of the categories that we want it to fall into, and it'll choose one. Categorization and classification is a really good use case. It's very good at figuring out sentiment. A lot of the early sentiment analysis tools would get thrown off with colloquialisms. Just the English language is very complex. The similar phrase can mean opposite things, so it's much better at picking up on that. I'd definitely try out making sure that you've got the prompt in the right way, and you should play around with the temperature. So the temperature is how deterministic it is. So if you want consistent results, you want to turn the temperature right down, which means it'll be less creative, but it's better at consistent categorization and sentiment analysis. If you're using it for data that you want to create charts and graphs out of, then do that. But if you want it to be more creative, then turn the temperature up.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because you could control the kind of, I guess if you're wanting something that is, I guess it's the case of giving an artist a fewer tools, isn't it really? And just letting it kind of run less wild with things if you know roughly what you're trying to get out of it. Yeah, that's it. I guess essentially if you know roughly the output and how you want it to be output, you can control how crazy it goes. Yeah, basically. For writing content or coming up with ideas, you want the temperature cranked right up. For classification, probably a bit lower. And they have a bunch of examples in the playground, so you don't need to be technical at all to actually play around with all this. You get
a text editor, you get some sliders on the right, you press go.
Nice.
It's really sort of pick it up and play, really.
Do in the playground, do they give different kind of use cases in terms of if you're using it for this sort of context versus coding, or you're trying to write a blog post because you're lazy?
Yeah, they give you a bunch of examples actually, so you can start off with a pre-written prompt and then just fill it in, and it'll complete that. But yeah, there's some really good content in there already and examples. If you're using it in an app, though, you want to make sure that it doesn't say anything that you don't want it to say. And for that, they have some content filtering add-ons as well.
Right.
So you can make sure that it doesn't say certain things. They've already pre-filtered it, so it won't talk about sensitive topics like there's a comment on the internet like Nazis and things like that.
Yeah.
So it'll already self-moderate around that. The problem is putting the whole internet in means that it's got the whole internet in it.
Yeah, which is a horrendous place, as we know.
Well, as I guess you know from the work that you're doing at the moment around sort of, figuring out where content's come from and that kind of thing.
It is quite interesting because, as well as being very good actors out there, there's obviously very bad actors as well. And it's how do you train an AI model on ethics? And that's a really interesting subject, really. And the content filtering side of things kind of leans into the general ethical angle of how do you ensure that this tool is acting ethically when you maybe want to use it in situations where you can't always monitor the input and output. And that's one of the challenges I think with the future of a lot of this stuff is, some of it's used in sensitive environments, maybe by the government or areas that you wouldn't be able to easily monitor its use.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure it acts ethically?
Yeah. Well, it's a big thing that OpenAI do is when you want to bring it into production use, they give you a questionnaire.
Right.
You have to do a little short video of the AI in use in your app.
Right.
And then you have to answer a load of questions around it. Does it touch anything political? Has it got anything to do with social media posts? If you have like open-ended output, they really want to know that that's not just going out unfiltered.
And that's great because if they see it misused, they can just cut off access like anything else, right?
Yeah. Although, if you're going to misuse it, you just probably wouldn't say you're going to productionize it and just use the playground.
True.
But they might notice if you put a load of stuff through. But I can definitely see, because there's competing models, not just GPT-3, I can definitely see people using this for bad and tweeting stuff automatically and giving fake political support and things like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because, on Twitter, for example, there's a lot of spam, really big spam issue, but you see a lot of the content regurgitated in interesting ways. And I wonder how much of that's already inspired or written by AI style software, because a lot of it's just given some key subjects to focus on and it just authors a message to a bunch of people. I'm sure you've had these sorts of spam on Twitter as well, but I wonder how much of that is actually generated by humans versus...
Yeah, it might be quite hard to tell because with written words, there isn't loads of variance like there is with images. With images, you can detect if they've been generated by AI. I think that's possible. But yeah, with written word, it's much more difficult, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, the content filtering and application process seems pretty solid. So yeah, it's just something to bear in mind before you go live. And obviously keeping an eye on the actual costs itself, which, it's charged like per 1,000 tokens. So it's about 6 cents per 1,000 tokens.
Right. And just like other cloud services, can you specify kind of thresholds of spend and things like that, or is it kind of just good luck?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good luck. I always, I say always, I've just been stung recently, but now I tend to make a virtual card in Jeeves with a new service and set up a limit, and then at least I'll get cut off.
Yeah.
And then
before a real bad happens.
Yeah, I just got stung by an $8,000 bill for something I spun up the other week.
Yeah, it can happen.
Which happens to the best of us.
It does.
And sad to say, in AWS, that they haven't made it very easy to stop shooting yourself in the foot either.
Yeah, I think solving that sort of throttling at the application layer needs to be simpler.
Yeah, definitely.
Because especially when you're using a cloud agnostic approach or you're using multiple services, trying to monitor the costs of requests and payloads is really hard.
Yeah, definitely. We were using some kind of Google geocoding API, I think, on Google Cloud, and something just kept calling it over and over and over and over. And the first we'd heard of it was the bill. There's like nothing, no other indication, and it was a lot. And
that's the worst thing. You have to be like, what's calling this? How's it happening?
Yeah.
And then you have to just invalidate the key, so it kills it.
Yeah, but the annoying thing was it's the same query each time. And surely we shouldn't get billed for that, but you know.
I can see that's still keeping you up at night.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. Well, I mean, it's incredibly exciting technology. So if you're going to try and use GPT-3, how would you use it? Where do you go?
So go to openai.com, sign up, and have a go in the playground, and then you can literally copy as curl and drop it into your terminal, and then port it into your application from there.
Amazing.
Easy peasy.
And what does the future of this look like? You mentioned that a bit earlier on.
So they're training GPT-4, which is an order of magnitude more amazing, apparently. So what GPT-3 was, it's like 100 times better. So people in Silicon Valley, there's rumblings that this is going to be an absolute game changer in terms of actually seeming to understand your specific instructions. And even there's hints towards it being multimedia, so could be audio and video and images potentially, but that's just rumors. But yeah, it should land between December and February, GPT-4, so we're talking about the sort of the right time, but quite excited to see what it brings, because terrified also. But I've been reading a book called Life 3.0, and it kind of talks about potential future scenarios of what happens if AI gets as good as we think it might get. Like, what if you have it starting to write Netflix shows, and then to start with, it'll just be the scripts, and then what if it's the actual video footage itself? And
then that could be mad. I mean, Charlie Brooker's going to be pissed off, isn't he?
yeah, he will be.
But that's mad. I mean, the opportunities there. Self-driving cars becomes more interesting then, because it's something that can just drive a car.
Yeah. I mean, I think self-driving cars is the future that never happened, isn't it?
We keep being promised it, but then it keeps killing people. So
I think now I realise why it hasn't happened is because Elon Musk is a shyster.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what he's on about.
Yeah, I actually, until this entire debacle, I actually thought he had some kind of nous for technology, but now I'm convinced that he doesn't.
I'd be really disappointed if his experiment works.
I can't. At this rate, I can't see how it is, turning off microservices, turning off parts of the infrastructure and just hoping that everything's fine. Has never ever been a good technique for cost savings. But also there's the really horrendous human side of things as well. I was speaking with a few friends recently who work at Twitter, and, the very public way of firing people without any sort of justification, and it's just horrendous.
And he's going to get stung by that, because employment laws are not the same in the rest of the world. No. America might be more relaxed, but if you do that in Germany, they'll get you.
Well, the real scary thing is that he doesn't seem to care about the repercussions of the costs of, settling these sorts of lawsuits and stuff. And it's actually really sad, because obviously Twitter is, as well as being an absolute hellfire, it's also a really amazing space for communities like the ones that we're in to exist. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I hope he doesn't completely fuck it.
Fingers crossed.
I know.
Well, if Elon doesn't get us, the AI will. I'll leave you with that.
Leave you that thought. Well, as you've said, we'll put the in the show notes links to GPT-3 and 4, or is in the article that's talking about GPT-4. But thanks for that run through. Apart from the harrowing end to that, I think it's exciting times.
Amazing. Thanks, Josh.
Cheers. So that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening to me and Rio talk about GPT-3 and the future of AI. As always, hit subscribe for more episodes and join us next time.